Colleagues, at Justice Questions last week in the House of Commons, Rachel Hopkins, Labour MP for Luton South, challenged ministers over the scandal of PWA members working the Landons late into their 60s, and specifically the effect on the recruitment, retention, safety and morale of PWA members by raising the retirement age for that role to 68. The reply by Alex Chalk, who was promoted from Prisons Minister to Solicitor General in the reshuffle 2 days later, was depressingly predictable and predictably depressing.
Although there are no plans to revisit the retirement age, we are pursuing a series of initiatives to boost morale, safety and retention to ensure prisons are as secure and rehabilitative as possible.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Government's previously stated that because of the higher potential for serious injury and fatality among firefighters and police, that it doesn't consider prison officers deserving of the same pension age protections, the right to retire at 60. So with serious violence against staff still plaguing our prisons, does the Minister accept that the message received by prison officers is that they will have to wait until one of their own is killed in the line of duty before their safety concerns are taken seriously?
Colleagues, Rachel is right. The Government's message to mine members is disgraceful. PWA members are seriously injured every day, and it's an insult to suggest they don't deserve the same rights as our colleagues in the police and fire brigade, which is the right to retire at 60. Listen to how the then Minister dodges Rachel's question.
Mercifully, during the pandemic, in fact, violence has come down in prisons and we welcome that. But it's also important not to make false comparisons. So when it comes to police officers, for example, employee contributions are at 12%, fire officers it's 14%, prison officers it's 5.45%. So we of course keep these matters under review. We in fact made a generous offer in 2017 to bring forward the retirement date when the taxpayer would pay the entirety of employee contributions. I regret that that was rejected by the POA.
This offer, which was far from generous, was rejected because it tied POA members to just 3 years before the state pension age. That would set it at 65 for now, but this would rise along with the state pension age if and when the government raises it, which they surely will. We want nothing less than the same protections and privileges as police officers, firefighters and the armed forces. As for employee contributions, that's a matter for negotiations, but the government won't even agree to discuss this with us. Let me be very clear. It was disgraceful that Lord Hutton's review into public sector pensions failed to include PWA members among the frontline uniformed services. Unfortunately, Lord Hutton doesn't seem keen to speak to us about whether this was an oversight or not, but that's no excuse for government to refuse to discuss it with us either. Colleagues, back in the chamber, it was Shadow Solicitor General Ellie Reeves' turn to grill the Minister, and she focused on an issue close to my members' hearts: pay betrayal and the retention crisis, which is hollowing out the service.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Our prison officers do fantastic work keeping prisons and communities safe, and throughout the pandemic they have gone above and beyond. But since 2010, the Ministry of Justice's own figures show that over 86,000 years of prison officer experience has been lost. These key workers are moving on to better paid work that doesn't involve abuse and assaults on a daily basis. Why then did this government reject the pay review body's recommendation of a £3,000 uplift for Band 3 prison officers? Shouldn't we be giving these key workers a pay rise to recognise their vital work in keeping our country safe?
Minister.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady. Well, where she's absolutely right is that retention matters, because if you have more experience in a prison, that does lead it to be safer and more rehabilitative. But it's disappointing that she didn't note that last year there was a minimum increase in pay of 2.5%, and in fact some officers received up to 7.5%, and that was much higher than wage inflation in the economy. We will continue to do everything possible to increase retention, including, by the way, those new officers, many of which I met over the course of the summer, who would really benefit from increased mentoring on those wings to improve morale, to improve retention. We're absolutely committed to that very important agenda.
Colleagues, ministers may claim they're committed to improving retention, but whatever it is they're doing just isn't working. Yes, morale and retention would be improved by more mentoring, but with over 86,000 years of experience lost since 2010, and this number has grown every day, there soon won't be anybody left to do any mentoring. Normalised violence and poor pay are certainly part of the picture, but having to work under such harsh conditions until the age of 68 for a full pension is nothing less than cruel, and it's a major reason why so many POA members leave the prison service. The SNP's Patricia Gibson swung the spotlight back round to this critical issue with her topical question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Secretary of State believe that it is safe or appropriate for prison officers, the invisible emergency service, who by definition deal with the most violent and dangerous criminals across the UK, should be expected to do so up to the age of 68, their retirement age? And does he not agree that this completely unrealistic retirement age has negatively impacted retention and recruitment rates?
Yeah.
Well, the Honourable Lady is right to raise the retirement age issue, and indeed, in an answer by my Honourable friend earlier, he rightly pointed out that there have been two attempts in recent years to try and resolve this issue. There wasn't an agreement reached with the POA. I very much hope that any future discussions could result in some agreement. We continue to look at this issue, and I want to put on record my warm tribute to the prison service and for the much hidden and misunderstood work of jailcraft that prison officers do day in and day out, both in England and Wales and indeed in Scotland.
The fact is that previous offers to reduce retirement age have been woefully inadequate and tied to multi-year pay deals and unrelated workplace reforms within England and Wales. With Robert Buckland sacked as Secretary of State 2 days later, the question is whether his replacement, Dominic Raab, will see sense and start good faith negotiations with your union, the POA, to resolve this shameful situation once and for all. Colleagues, I would like to thank Rachel, Ellie and Patricia and all our other parliamentary allies for standing up for my members and keeping up the pressure on this government. Colleagues, unity is strength, and together we can make ministers fix our broken system before it's too late.